finally got my name in there. Good job, Smitty, or whoever you had to do it.
That's Mike. Good, man. That's Mike back at the station. It was Smitty that was supposed to do it, but Mike took it out. No, I'm kidding.
That's great.
Flyers, Blue Jackets tonight. It's Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, and Chris Terrian. Bundy not feeling well. He's in the home studio tonight in the pub. Still featuring that pub bed behind you, which looks good.
Yeah.
But it feels like an eternity since we've been here at Wells Fargo Center. Probably because it has been in a lot of ways, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, after that, the Disney on Ice moves in after Christmas, and the Flyers for many years, or almost every year, except for a couple, have taken off to the West Coast for their trip to the Canadian, Western part of it. And you know what? I always felt it was a good time to get away, and I know we spoke about this probably before, Jason, in terms of the team and where they're at, but it started out as a great trip, and it ended as a disaster, really. When you went into Calgary the New Year's Eve and at Edmonton on the second. So here they are, up against the standing. And that's why we talked about the importance of winning every single night. Not every night, you're not going to do that, but to stay up in the pack. And they find themselves just with 2 losses. It gives you an example. As you look around the league, you can find yourself right back down to the bottom of the 8, not the whole standings in the Eastern Conference, but that's just what it means. And this Flyers team, you know what, whatever it's been this year, have they outperformed expectations? I think they have. Have they got the right chemistry in this team that's worked this year? Absolutely. But that being said, it's so important if you believe that you're that team that's going to make the playoffs, that you find a way to stay in that pack. And just to give you an example, losing 2 games in regulation, how detrimental that can be to you in the standings. So this game tonight becomes magnified. Every game now becomes magnified if you want to make the playoffs, and you're in and around that 8 spot or inside the top 8. So I'm looking forward to a good game here tonight, and a game, quite frankly, Jason and Brian, the Flyers have got to rebound from a bad trip to Alberta to finish off the Western Canada tonight.
Yeah, Jason and I had talked about it a little too, and that's kind of why we were telling some folks that this is great, enjoy it, but it can turn real quick because the Flyers had just basically squeezed everything they could out of the last 2 months of 2023, and despite that, they're still, like you said, right on the cliff of maybe falling out of everything if a couple guys get hurt or some losses get strung together, because that's how tight it is right now. And I think the biggest thing for this team is to just make sure that they're playing meaningful games through the spring. You don't want a situation like last year where the season, for all intents and purposes, was over in January. As far as these guys' development and stuff, I'm sure you guys, you've done it before, where you want to play games that mean something in the latter half of the season as part of what it takes to set your. If you're not going to be in the playoffs, is what it's going to take to set yourself up for that down the road.
There's no doubt about it, Smitty. And again, it's in a season like this, sometimes if you can make the playoffs, it would be a pleasant surprise to everybody, because we're told in the summer, as everybody was examining the team, including GM Danny Briere, this is a rebuild. We're rebuilding. Well, it's gone a little bit ahead of the plan. But one thing I do know, you could take an amazing group with chemistry like this year, and that does not mean it's going to be duplicated next year with the same group. You could be 13th. Over. Yeah, you could be 13th in the conference again next year with basically looking at what they've done with the talent level they have, because it is a rebuild, right? We're not the ones that said, we may have said it, but there's still, if you look at this roster, there might, as we said, there might be 10 or 12 guys that are not here by the time the rebuild's done. There might be less than that, but that's what the time takes. So yes, Smitty, I agree with you. It's been a tremendously pleasant surprise. A lot goes into the Flyers winning hockey game. It's very, very difficult for them to play the kind of way that they play and win games, and they've done that. So they have a lot to be proud of. But this is now, again, they're playing a bad team tonight. If you were going to design who you wanted to play tonight, it would probably be Columbus coming off that trip. Werenski's, I know we were talking about it before here, Jason, but this is a kind of game you need if you're the team that you think you've been and you want to use that chemistry that what you built to this point. It's a game tonight you absolutely have got to win tonight. And believe me, it'll probably be a tough one when it's all said and done.
Bunny, let me ask you about the note. In your career, you didn't play a lot of final 2 months of the season that didn't mean anything. The teams you were on were basically cup or bust for the most point for the most of your career. But talk about the difference in a team that's playing for every inch they can get in the standings versus a team that know they're playing out the string because the lack of pressure. I call them games of consequence.
Right.
If you're playing
Great.
games of
Yeah.
consequence, that's how you're going to react when crap really hits the fan when you're playing on a really good team. So, what is the difference in the pressure that goes on to the player in that situation, and why it's easier to, when there's a game of non-consequence, that it's easier to perform for some guys?
Well, because there's no burden of pressure on you.
Yeah.
That's why they always say the really good players rise when the pressure's on and when the big game players, right? Just being able to go out and respond and play in a big moment. This yeah, again, and I look at this team and I don't know. I would assume Torts has told them and their coaching staff would have gotten a hold of them and told them, like, guys, this is an important game tonight. Like, you have got to be ready. This could be the 2 points at the end of the year, right?
Yep.
Like, you don't know what that 2 points is that gets you in, and you want to look back and say, man, what was the game we could have won? We should have beat Columbus back in early January, but we didn't. The only thing I know, and I think I put it on Twitter the other night before the Calgary or the Edmonton game, this is the real season starts now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams that teeter through it, putter through the beginning of the year because either they have a team they know is going to go on a run. What the Flyers have done essentially is they've really relied on this chemistry and the togetherness for the first half of the year. It's not halfway yet, but it's pretty much. And so that's the problem with the Flyers where they're at right now is they have to find a way to continue to manufacture that. And I think that's going to be the struggle second half. How do you do that night in and night out? Stay totally focused on the job at hand while putting a bulk of work in to getting the win on any given night.
Exactly. Yeah. And two, you've got a situation right now where you can do all the execution and togetherness and everything you want, but at the end of the day, you've got to score some goals to win some hockey games, and they're not scoring right now. And with the changes to the lineup tonight, trying to give some guys, I guess, a night off or whatever. But a lot of these chances in this last couple of games, it just looked like giant beach balls being shot at the net. Like, there's no chance you're ever going to see them go in. So, just trying to figure out exactly how to get the offense going a little bit is going to be huge too.
There's no doubt about it, and there will be some changes, and I'm sure Jason will get to those. But Flyers lineup, there'll be changes, and Torts, pretty short on the trip with the media afterwards. Didn't
Smitty?
want to, great, Smitty. Brian, great job by you, buddy. You're the lead all-star in the new 2024 January 2024.
Keeping them off YouTube. That's all I got to do.
You know what? But you know what? No, but seriously though, again, it's he said the other night, I don't want to dissect this game. We got to get the hell out of here. We got a game in 2 nights, and that's fine. But again, now you're kind of searching, right? Like, you're like, okay, this is maybe the first time this year that we've actually been in a situation where you're a head coach and you say, okay, we really need to win this game. Like, we need to get in the pack again because
emergency.
Hey, we have something here. Wow, we're in the playoffs right now. It's January. Yep. So that's why, as I say it, and, from having played many seasons and seen a lot of peaks and valleys in a season, that's why I say that. And it's every team's different, and right now they have the luxury of having good chemistry going for them, but they've got to find a way to get that back again. And they've lost it the last few days.
Yeah, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about that because with that, we've got to win games. There's an urgency and there's a lack of, waiting around for guys. So we're going to talk about that and the effect it's having on the lineup here tonight for the Flyers versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's take our break. We'll come back after this. It's Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. And we are back live as the Flyers get set to take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Couple of big lineup decisions went into this game tonight, and two guys come out. Morgan Frost comes out of the lineup, as does Cam Atkinson, against the team that he was traded from and that John Tortorella coached him with. Bundy, are you shocked at either of those guys being out of the lineup? And they're, it's interesting because they're both in far different situations in their career. Frost has been scratched 10 times this season and is a young player trying to establish himself. Atkinson, 34 years old, coming off a year missed. So different circumstances, but are you surprised at the two that are scratched?
I always give respect to a guy who's been in the league, but I've been there too. Atkinson can't stay in the lineup. I mean, there's no way the way he's playing. He took a shot the other day, missed the net by 4 feet. I mean, those are
shots below the top of the circle. It's
yeah, those are attentions to detail that he should know better. But he's not paying attention to it right now. So the coach, I've been there. I've been on the other side of that. When you get older, you make mistakes, not who you once were. And then Morgan Frost, nothing surprises me with that anymore. He did not have a great road trip. He didn't. But neither did Owen Tippett, neither did Tyson Forster, Cam Atkinson. There's other guys. There's a lot of guys didn't have good road trips. But Torts has it in for Morgan Frost, and that's the way it is. That'll never change. But I give it to him for having enough fortitude to, take out a guy that he's been in love with. He's loved that. I know that in his days in Columbus. So, to do something like that probably pains Torts, but it's the right call. It's the right thing for the team, the right thing for the organization. I call for not transparency, but for people to just be fair. And I agree. I don't like Morgan Frost out of the lineup. I think you should just let him play, but he hasn't been good the last couple of games. But this is a situation now where, if you got something going, you got to try to find the right pieces and night in, night out. And I think that's where they're at right now with them. Two totally different scenarios. You got a guy, where people are asking, maybe is he done? He might be done. He's not a big guy, Cam Atkinson. Morgan Frost is another guy. I don't know what necessarily they want to get from that, but if you can't play him a lot, then you're not setting themselves up to trade immediately. So I'm not really sure what to think about. Two totally different, Jason. Yes, you're correct. Yeah.
Well, let me. I'll pose it to you this way: forgetting Morgan Frost for a moment. In Edmonton, Nick Delorier sits, and again, it's not a situation where it's like, oh, I'm going to put another guy in the lineup in your place. They're actually going 11-7 with these changes. So it's and then that's what happened. This happened last year too. With I believe it was Konechny and JVR where they went 11-7. They sat them or something like that. That's happened before. So I guess what I'm curious to your perspective, Bundy, is what does that do to the room? Does that put people on notice? Does that maybe energize them a little bit because they know that such and such isn't going, so somebody else gets in? Jason, I've never been there, so I don't know what the effect is.
Jason, I know what he's going to say because I know he knows what I'm going to say about 7 defensemen. If you're if you're one of the top 4 defensemen and there's 7 guys dressing, it's a nightmare. Yeah. Unless they just leave the top 2 pairs alone and just rotate the third. But it's awful. Believe me, trust me, it's brutal. But yeah, listen, it's just a matter of finding the right chemistry between the guys in the room, and it's a tough situation tonight because you don't have a lot of rest. You got home really late from Edmonton. You played not even 48 hours ago, all the way out in Western Canada. So you got to come back tonight, and whoever does come in the lineup, Smitty, you be prepared. You welcome him with open arms and do everything you can to help that guy in the game, no matter what the position is. But I don't like 7 defensemen ever. I just
there's no flow to it, Bundy.
Yeah, well, the problem is when you go down 4 lines, you're taking a guy off a 4th line to add a 7th defenseman. There's just not enough good players in the league that you have to worry about a 4th line. Just get a guy out there for whatever it is. I don't know. 7 defensemen for me, all it does is trip up the D. They like to go in their pairs, and the 7th guy don't like. But you know what? It is what it is. It's not the first time it's happened. It won't be the last.
Yeah, I think the effect on the room has got to be so different. Morgan Frost has been scratched 10 times prior to this season, but when you scratch Cam Atkinson, that's a big message from the coaching staff. And Cam Atkinson, I remember when he talked to me at Exit Take a couple of years ago before Torts was hired, and he was beating the drum for Torts, and it was about accountability, and accountability goes to him as well. So,
and I do, and I salute Torts for it. Like,
yeah,
it takes a little bit to do that. Like, he's the guy. I said he loved him, and he does. He doesn't want to do that to a veteran. But at the same time, Cam Atkinson has not been a good player for this team. He hasn't had a goal in almost 2 months, if I'm not mistaken.
22 games.
Right. So,
crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. So if you can't have the guy's going to play like that, you can't put him in the lineup on a regular basis and give him big minutes. I mean, was it 2 nights ago? I think he had the second most minutes on the ice.
Yeah,
which is insane. But it shows Torts wants to give him a look and give him a chance, but just not happening.
Yeah, there's a tipping point to everything. All right, when we come back, we'll give you the line combinations because obviously with 11 forwards and 7D, there's going to be some interesting combinations. We'll do that when we return. We'll take you right up to the countdown to face-off, followed by all the first period action between the Flyers and the Blue Jackets. First home game of 2024. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. All right, it's Jason Martinez, Chris Terry, and Brian Smith. Flyers, Blue Jackets tonight. Look at this. Smitty's on the concourse. Look at this photo he snapped there, Big Al.
That's a legend right there.
Yeah, it is.
Is that game worn?
It might be.
Couple of legends right there, Drew and number 6.
Yeah. Seeing your jersey in the stands all these years later, Bundy, does it make you go, wow, that's pretty cool? Or does it make you go, dude, you got to update your jersey selection?
Yeah, you know what? It's pretty cool. Yeah, I was like the second tier of guys that maybe have jerseys, so people had to have them made. But I still, you know what? When someone wears it down there, it's always cool to see that. My kids like it more than me. They're like, oh, look at that. Yeah, so anyway, that's pretty cool stuff. So I appreciate that guy, and hope he has a good time at the game tonight with Drew in the jersey next to him.
You get a little check in the mail every time there's an old Big Al jersey that goes out?
Every time someone wears them, I hear they go down in price.
We gotta get.
If I signed it, it goes down 50%.
Let's get to the line combinations for the game tonight. We mentioned 11 and 7. The Flyers are going with in this game once again tonight. The top line remaining untouched. Sean Couturier centering Travis Konechny and Joel Farabee. What do you think of Farabee on that top line? I thought he played well the other night in that game. A couple nice assists. Good distributor of the puck, and maybe those three bodies, the way they play together, work together.
I like Farabee. He's actually played pretty well lately. The other guy, too, that I thought that easily could have come out tonight is Bobby Brink. We forgot to talk about him. But Farabee getting elevated to that top line, I think gives it listen, just kind of ruffles things a little bit, gives a different look. And I think it's important to kind of shuffle things a little bit through the year and just shake them up in a bag and kind of just toss them out. And it doesn't have to be for long, but it kind of freshens things up on a long season. Farabee I thought he had a pretty good road trip, consistently going to the net. That's the thing I wanted from him more, like to see more of him doing that is going to the front of the net. But he's had an ability to make some good passes. We'll see what he does up there. Having that good defensive prowess on that line is good too. With Coots, yeah.
Lawton's going to center Owen Tippett and Garnet Hathaway. Ryan Poehling will center Tyson Forster and the aforementioned Bobby Brink, and then Rhett Gardner draws in for his first game as a Flyer. He's played 40 NHL games, and he'll be on that fourth line, well, 2/3 of the fourth line with Nick Delaurier, who does come back in. But there's your missing forward.
Mark Stahl did take line rushes, by the way.
Did he?
Yeah, that's something.
Well, he's coming off a game with his first goal.
Yeah, I just said about the shaking of the bag. He actually did shake the bag on this one.
Yeah.
Literally shook the bag.
I think he did, yeah.
So the D pairs are York and Sanheim, Sealer and Walker. There's your top four, which you hope just plays in that same exact rotation. And then they rotate Zamula, Stahl with Ristolainen as a third pair, but don't have that rotate those guys in the top four, right, Bundy?
No, I mean, maybe if some guys you see something where the guy's really playing well, maybe you'll put him up a little bit. But I think they'll try to find the chemistry between the third pair. I just rotate them. I've done it before. I mean, it's not as long as you don't bug the top pair. That's really all everybody was trying to do. Just make sure that they stay focused on their job. Second pair gets out, and then the third is always the fairest way to do it. Just rotate 5, 6, and 7 between those two. There's no problem with that at all.
Sam Ersson gets the start. Are we surprised that Ersson got the game tonight?
I'm not a little bit. I'm
No?
absolutely not stunned at all. I mean, he had the cramps in the one game. I get him back. I mean, listen, they didn't have a problem starting him. They started in the Vancouver game, right? When they went out there?
He played Vancouver and he played Calgary, but came out with like 18 minutes left in the third.
Yeah, so I have no problem. I mean, listen, they're pretty good with both, but I have no problem with Ersson back in there tonight. And again, it's not a popularity contest. We're trying to win hockey games. I think he gives you a great chance to win it.
And I'm sure they got their numbers and stuff too on who to go with on which night. But I mean, it's not a back-to-back here, but 1 o'clock game on Saturday, it's almost a back-to-back. So you got to pick one or the other here tonight. And again, they've got their numbers and stuff, and I'm sure we'll see Carter on Saturday. So it's just it's a bumpy thing coming up here with all these games this month. I think they're both going to get a good share of the minutes.
Yeah, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. If you have two good goalies playing well, and if one decides to really take the reins, you don't want to make that change. I don't want to go into the playoffs with two goalie rotation, but I'm sure they'll sort that out. I have no problem with two goalies playing really well at all, because you need guys like that to step up and fill a void sometimes if the other goalie's tired. And I think it's absolutely fine mid-season to have the luxury of two goalies playing as well as they have.
Flyers right now 3 points back of the second spot. Carolina has played 38 games. They've got 46 points. The Islanders 1 point ahead of the Flyers. They've played the same amount of games. The New Jersey just 1 point now back of the Flyers with a game in hand. Washington 1 point back of the Flyers with a game in hand. And the Penguins 3 points back of the Flyers with a game in hand. But, Buddy, this is as tight as it gets at this point. I mean, we're in January. This is really tight in the division.
Wait till you see the last 10 days of the year. It's going to be insane. Yeah, it's going to be
3 point games. Yeah,
mad scramble. But yeah, that. But and again, that lends to what we talked about today on this show. Stay up in that 8. And then you're not battling at 9 and 10th, like praying that somebody loses at the end of the year, so you'd stay in it. And I've seen this team go through that before. These are the games tonight. You have got to beat the Columbus.
Yeah. Because there's going to be times too when some of these other teams. I mean, the Rangers just got clocked by somebody the other night. I forget who it was, but it's Carolina maybe. I mean, definitely not a has-been, but every now and then you're going to see other teams have the same thing. You want to make sure you take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. It's not a time right now to – I do think this is a tough spot for the Flyers tonight. I really do, coming back from that game. But, man, I'll tell you what, if they can get this one and carry a little momentum back into Saturday's rematch with Calgary, this could be a real pivotal, paramount game for this team, and one that they remember back later in the year if they end up getting the victory here.
Yeah, and they'll actually have a day to get on the ice and get some practice in tomorrow. I imagine it won't be a long practice. There's a lot of managing of energy going on right now. With 14 games this month, 9 of which are at home, or 13 games. There's a lot of hockey to be played, and the most important time to be at your best is going to be game time. And it's that time now for the Flyers to kick off their 2024 schedule. And Tim Saunders and Top of the Work, they've got the countdown to face off. That'll be followed by all the first period action between the Flyers and the Blue Jackets. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.